Hello, and welcome back to the Delve podcast. Today, we're talking about the backwardness of behavioral change. I'm Allie. I'm a staff therapist here at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
And I'm Adam. I'm the Executive and Clinical Director at Delve Psychotherapy of Chicago.
Help us spread the word with this podcast, please. We really do rely on word of mouth. We don't plan to run any ads. We're not trying for fame here. We just want to add value and be helpful to as many people as possible. So please do share, do spread the love. If you find value in this podcast, I'm sure other people in your life would too. So share it to those people.
And again, if they haven't responded to your first share, I'd say just go ahead and do send email reminders for the next month, like one per week, and just kind of be like, I really think this could help you be nicer to me.
Yeah, be persistent. Here at Delve Psych, we offer individual, couples, group, and family therapy. If you're interested in a free consultation call, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And do check out our Substack. We have some really great blog posts over there at delvepsych.substack.com.
I really like the one that Catherine wrote for this week. I know that'll be on delay for everybody else, but it was all about the common trend that we see where people will come into therapy and for session one with us and say, my last therapist just validated me and I want to be pushed. I want to be kind of like jostled. Man, I think that's such an interesting tension in our field right now.
I've also heard that too. Yeah. Like the sentiment of like, I felt like with my last therapist, I was just kind of venting and like, they were nice and it was a nice space, but like I didn't feel like I really like learned anything new or like saw anything different or was challenged on anything. So I think people are wanting more directive therapy overall.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that maybe clinicians possibly maybe clients also mix up is that directive doesn't mean we're telling you what to do. And my mentality has always been that it should be fair game for us to discuss any particular idea, almost any particular idea. So as we're considering some topic, some issue, I feel like a general conversation about it should be fair game, no matter what that conversation is, or almost no matter what that conversation is, because we're just exploring ideas. We're just playing with perspective. That's therapy, is just play with perspective.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a really interesting trend. And so, yeah, do check out that blog post on our Substack written by Catherine. It's very good. All right. So the backwardness of behavioral change. How did you come up with this topic for today, Adam?
Well, I talk about this a lot with clients because I think it's rather counterintuitive. And it's one of those places where the zeitgeisty layperson kind of view of behavior change is so deeply entrenched and exactly not helpful. And I find that trying to convince on this front can be, I've had this experience repeatedly where the person will state what I would consider to be the layperson's view, which I'll get to in just a second. I'll say, then I'll say, I don't think that's the best way to think about it. I think there's a better way to think about it. The better way to think about it is kind of super counterintuitive. So they'll nod their head and say, yes, that makes sense. Totally get it. And then they'll restate the original position exactly as they did. And then they'll come in a week later and say, I tried to do what you said, which was the original layperson's kind of view of behavior change. And they're still believing that I'm saying the thing that is consistent with the precept when I'm very much saying the exact opposite. Yeah. It's that deeply ingrained that people can't even hear it.
Interesting. It's really hard for them to see this concept differently. So what do lay people think about behavioral change?
Absolutely. So let's take a topic. What's a behavior that somebody might be trying to change?
Maybe they're on their phone too much.
Got it. Okay. And then as they are narrativizing about how they need to change their behavior, what are they going to say that they need to do? Or if you want to tweak it a little bit, let's say that your friend comes to you and says, I'm on my phone too much, what are some of the early suggestions that people might throw their way?
Putting the phone in the other room while you're trying to get something important done. Putting your phone on like silent mode or like blocking apps on your phone. Those sorts of strategies, I think.
Absolutely. And you'll notice, this is part one of my broader argument, you'll notice that both of those ideas require you to realize that you are in a situation such that you are going to need to prevent yourself from engaging in a particular behavior. So awareness is a given to make either of those things effective. If I'm going to put my phone in the fridge, I need to be aware, not the fridge. That's not what you said. Don't put your phone in the fridge.
In the other room. Why is
in
it
the
in
other
the
room?
Fridge?
Well, sometimes you get distracted and your phone just ends up in the fridge.
Has that happened to you before?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't. I mean, keys end up in the fridge all the time. So, not
Sure.
mine in particular. I don't know. You get distracted. You start, this thing.
Okay, anyways. Yes, when I used to work at like a food service place, my phone would often end up in different various fridges.
Would it end up in the fridge?
It would.
Did this happen to you? Yeah.
It would, but not
Yeah,
at home. This hasn't happened to me at home, but yeah.
We can get into autopilot and how that works someday, but there's a reason why sometimes your things end up in weird places, and suddenly you're putting the dog leash in the microwave. It happens.
Yeah.
Anyways, so don't turn it on if you've done that. I'm begging you, do not put your phone in the fridge and do not turn on the microwave with a dog leash inside. Just public service announcement. But so in order to prevent myself from engaging in the behavior that I don't want to engage in, I need to have awareness of the fact that I am now at risk of engaging in that behavior. Awareness is a precondition for both of those things to happen.
And how do you make sure you have the awareness?
Pay attention all the time, right? You need to be paying attention all the time. And you'll hear people say that too. I should just be paying more attention to what I'm doing. I should be more intentional. I should be more careful about my actions and my behaviors. So this comes up in coupley fighting situations all the time. It's like, right. I need to notice when I'm getting activated, and I need to prevent myself from getting activated, and then I need to choose my words very carefully. In fact, when you go to a typical psychotherapist, they'll be teaching you, when you did X, I felt Y. In the future, I would like. It requires awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness is a precondition for any of those things to be effective.
Okay.
Human brains don't do a good job at paying attention. The entire field of human factor psychology is all about the fact that, well, it's largely about how humans interact with machines, but a lot of their research is about the attention issues that go into that. I have it's not exactly a morbid curiosity. It's a professional psychological fascination with like airline flying and really airline disasters. So I end up watching a lot of content about plane crashes, not because I'm callous to the loss of life. I care very deeply about the fact that this happens, but it's such a fascinating psychological phenomenon because, by and large, these planes, if you do a handful of things, an amateur could fly them. They've proven this. You can have just a who's it's with a little bit of instruction on the radio. If you could work the radio and the plane's basically intact, you could land the plane. The thing is so hard to crash. So anytime you end up in a situation where the flight is actually in danger, a cascade of things will have had to go wrong. Sometimes mechanical, but very often mechanical plus psychological. And very often those end up having to do a lot with attention. Human attention is a fickle little thing. And so one of the things that the airline industries are very careful about, and manufacturers and regulators are very careful about, is exactly how they get information into a pilot, especially in a crisis situation. They think about distraction, they think about workload, they think about the preponderance of other. If I have 20 things wrong with the plane and I get 20 warnings, good luck. And so they have to start to kind of put them in order and be like, you should pay attention to this, and then this, and then this. So anyway, all of that is to say, in situations where safety is of the utmost concern and people are deeply interested in the psychological preconditions for effectively directing your attention to the right things, they've taken into deep consideration the fickle nature of human attention and the fact that it is difficult to get it back. It's difficult to direct it where you need to be. So good luck in this fight with your wife, paying enough attention to use all the right words in
Right.
exactly the moment, in exactly the way that you need to, while you're emotionally activated and you're probably tired from work. Good luck.
Yeah, that's a lot. No, it's a lot to have that ability to kind of take a step back when you're in it and you're feeling all the things, like how it's so easy when you're not in it to be like, oh, when you're in those like really stressful moments, make sure you take a breath and make sure you remember all of the right ways to word your asks of your partner and make sure you do all the right things in the situation so that future you can thank you. It's like, how do I do, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And a lot of professional therapists will go down this route as well. One of the ones that just like boils my blood a bit is the idea of safe words in a relationship, in a high conflict couple, where they're
okay.
like, if somebody just says pancake, we should stop fighting. If you were aware enough to realize that you need to say pancake, then you don't need to say pancake. You could operate effectively in the circumstance and be effective in communicating with your partner and say something like, hey, I think we should slow down here, because you're paying attention. You have your wits about you. You're noticing what's happening. And if your partner is paying enough attention to hear the word pancake and know that that means that we're in a precarious situation and we need to stop and slow down and back off, then they don't need to hear the word pancake. They'll already be responsive to, like, they know that, hey, we're in a rough spot here. Maybe we could slow down. You,
Right.
if you need, if you're in a situation where the safe word would work, you don't need it. I've never, ever seen it work. I've never, ever seen it work.
That's so interesting. But I think you make a good point. Yeah, if you have your wits about you enough to be able to realize, okay, this is kind of going off the rails. We need to like slow down, take a pause, maybe even take a break from this conversation, and you communicate that to them. Why even need the safe word? Because you're already
Right.
doing what you need to do.
Exactly. So we go back to the phone example, playing on your phone. You suddenly find yourself on Instagram. Has that ever happened to you where you just like suddenly
All the
you're
time.
on Instagram, you're 4 shorts in and you're like, what, how did I get here?
Unfortunately, Adam, all the time.
Right. So, I mean, it's like there's something about the human mind that allows it to just kind of get on autopilot and go in these ways. One, it's probably seeking something that, like, with our conscious minds, we could begin to explore and probably find some insights into and begin to operate on. But let me pose to you the next part of this kind of thought structure, which is, so when are you most likely to be effective at changing your behavior? At minute 0, when you're not paying attention, maybe you're emotionally flooded, you're certainly super tired, and clearly you're operating on autopilot. That's minute 0.
Mm-hmm.
Or at minute 4, when you suddenly realize that something's been happening, you've been doing something on autopilot, you've been fighting, or you've been Instagramming, or you've been in this
Yeah.
place. Where are you most likely to be effective at changing your behavior?
Minute 4.
Absolutely. That sucks though, right? I don't want to have fought with my partner for 4 minutes and then realize. I want to know it immediately.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Wouldn't it be great if there was a magical solution?
Yeah. So what do you, I guess, yeah, and I can see people beating themselves up at like, oh man, what was I doing the last 15 minutes? Just like aimlessly, without intention, just like watching all of these TikToks that I didn't mean to watch. And now I have less time to write my essay or whatever it is. And I'm like, dang it.
Got it.
Yeah. So now what? Now that we've realized it and said, dang it. Okay, what do we want to do now?
So, in the moment that you realize what is going on, that is the first moment that you have a deep responsibility to begin acting and act in accordance with your goals, needs, and values. Act in the direction of your goals, needs, and values in that moment. Don't keep creating this fantasy land where you're going to be able to pay attention all the time. It won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't continue to emotionally react while you're, the problem lies when you're in minute 15 of scrolling or minute 4 of fighting, and you realize that you're fighting and you realize that you're scrolling, and you're like, I guess I'll just keep doing that.
Whatever. Yeah,
that's
that's the moment. Yeah.
that's the problem, right? But here's the other thing. Behavior change is about awareness. It's also about kind of comfort with the emotionality and making a different choice when that particular emotionality is occurring for you. So you think about the kind of boredom that might be a precondition to beginning scrolling, or you think about the ire or the anxiety that might be the precondition for fighting with your partner. That's the emotion you need to get more comfortable with. You need to become more aware of, and you need to begin to act differently around.
Ooh, okay. So the boredom precedes the scrolling, which you don't want to do, and the maybe anxiety or stress precedes the fighting that can tend to happen with the partner. So that's what you pay attention to.
Right. We want to be, eventually, we're going to have to grow more comfortable with that emotion and more purposeful in our actions around that emotion, right? So where are you more likely to be effective, at minute 0 of boredom or at minute 15 of boredom? At minute 0 of anxiety or at minute 4 of anxiety? When am I more likely to be effective at noticing, changing my behavior, and becoming more comfortable with? It's easier later to deal with those emotions.
Yeah. I'm just gonna play devil's advocate for a second.
You're very good at it, by the way, and I really
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
that about you.
Because I could see somebody saying like, yeah, but Adam, like, I really don't want to fight with my girlfriend. Like, it's really bothering me though that it has to take me 15 minutes into our argument for me to be like, okay, wait, never mind. Oops, I did it again. Like Britney Spears. No, like I isn't there some way, Adam, that I can like work on this so that like it doesn't have to be that like we do fight and then I don't realize it until later, because like I can tell that it's really putting a strain on our relationship for me to always have to like, for us to get in these fights and then later be like, oh wait, sorry, I did it again. Like how many times can I do that?
Well, there's two sides to this. One is, I think the best way to prevent that then is to pay attention all the time. So good luck.
Yeah, which you're not going to be
And
great at.
you're not going to be very good at that, one. But two, you're also, I mean, what kind of life is that where you're just sort of on, that's eggshells. You've created your own eggshells now. I'm on eggshells about my actions and behavior in any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I think that we need to remember that you do, even if you are outside of awareness, even if you are on autopilot, even if you're flooded, etc., and so on, you are responsible for your behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're finding yourself in a situation where it feels to you like some of these behaviors are getting away from you,
Yeah.
then I think that's even more of a reason to kind of double down on some of the things that I'm throwing your way here, because the charge is try to pay more attention. Try as hard as you can to pay more attention to what you are doing right now. I just think you're going to be most successful at doing that if you start at the end and work backward. There is another way. It's called setting state or set state. You can kind of enter into certain circumstances that you know in advance are going to be a particular kind of activation and kind of set your mentality ahead of time. That does work to some degree, but then at some point you're likely to get activated while in the middle of it, and the same cascade from before might happen.
Mm.
So there is a potential for you to suffer some consequences as a result of your behavior if you're continuing to operate on autopilot. My take on that would be then take this seriously.
Mm-hmm.
You can set a state ahead of time and for the rest of your life that says certain behaviors are absolute no-goes. I will never do this thing in any area of my life the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That could work. If you're able to kind of set this is sorry, slightly neuroscience-y for just a half second, but if I was to tell you right here and right now, I'm going to scare you in just a second. 1, 2, 3, boo. No matter how scary I was, it probably wouldn't work. You know it's coming.
Right.
And so there seems to be a relationship between the prefrontal cortex. I can't remember what part. I think that might be dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. I'm not certain, but there seems to be a relationship between some part of the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia have a lot to do with procedural memory, like how do you swing a golf club? How do you open the front door? How do you get to Instagram on your phone? The basal ganglia is the stuff that kind of remembers and does the individual steps of that, but it also has to do with what are called the behavioral brakes and the behavioral grease. So it can stop you from moving and it can start you from moving. Some of the movement disorders like Parkinson's, Huntington's, etc., have a heavy kind of the basal ganglia are heavily impacted by those diseases are partly happening because of the impacts on the basal ganglia. But the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the basal ganglia really can be that the prefrontal cortex can say, hey, this thing is coming, don't react to it. Or it could say, hey, this thing is coming, be ready to react to it. When I'm playing goalkeeper, I've got to kind of get that relationship in sync to say, whatever is about to happen, move. I don't know what's about to happen. And by the time my cognition, my consciousness catches up, it's too late. So just set in your brain ahead of time, go. Just go. It's over there, go.
Yeah.
And I actually had a save this weekend that was kind of like that, where by the time I got to the ball and like was consciously aware, I would have already had to have moved. And so by kind of getting yourself in that headspace and just going, I was able to already be there. And I made a pretty nice save. I'm pretty proud of myself. But anyway, so we still lost 3-0. Anyway.
Do you mostly play goalie?
Oh yeah, I'm almost exclusively a goalkeeper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know
I
that.
used to play a little bit on the pitch, but I just don't have the technical skill for it. So, but goalkeeping, I'm pretty solid. Getting older. But
Not
anyway.
that old.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
Did I address your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, knowing that like this behavior is something that has continued to be a sticky spot, has continued to cause distress in my relationship. So yeah, maybe for this one area, I am very hyper aware and going into like situations or serious talks with my partner, I am more like present and aware because I know like this can tend to happen where we end up falling into a fight.
Right.
So, yeah. So I wonder too, then if we're talking about how sometimes maybe like anxiety tends to precede these conflicts, these fights with my partner, like is it then to like note, like being more aware, noticing of like the moments where I come home from work and I'm more anxious from the day or I'm more stressed from the day, and being able like that moment to like, I don't know, take more preemptive actions and setting yourself up for success. So then when your partner does come home, that sort of thing.
Well, there again, if you have enough awareness to do that sort of thing, you probably don't need to do that sort of thing because you have enough awareness.
Yeah.
So typically, I would say what I do to try to achieve what we were just talking in that last segment, what
Yeah.
I do with clients is I'll often just try, dude, you have to stop. You have to stop doing this. You have to stop fighting with your partner. You have to stop talking with them in that way, etc. Right? Like, so I'll try it. Most of the time that doesn't work. It's such a, I mean, it shouldn't work really, right? Like if they're coming to me for psychotherapy help saying, okay, well, stop, that shouldn't be enough. Every once in a while it is. And the way that it goes, the way that that becomes effective is one, there's kind of like tacit kind of belief in the general messaging. And now there's kind of external validation for that kind of like, all right, I know I need to change. I need to change. So there's kind of an externalization of the kind of pressure to change, combined with that I'm just going to make a rule for myself. And it is a hard and fast rule, and I will not break it. But a lot of people in a lot of situations are just going to fail to be able to follow through on that. You fall out of awareness, the old thing happens again. And so you're back to the situation that you're in. So what I try to coach clients on is try to stop. Great if you can. Our conversation is over if you're effective. So try to stop. If you can pay attention and set all these kind of little preconditions in place, great. Then go do it. And I'll be wrong and you'll be right and you'll be changed and it's great. Wonderful. More than likely, I think you're going to find yourself 15 minutes deep into a scrolling session or 4 minutes deep into a fight. And then I want you to remember my voice. So if you do all the other things, you're never going to need what I'm about to say. Great. Well done. I was wrong. You were right. Good. But if I'm right, then you're going to get to this moment. And once you're in that moment, then I just want to improve the connection between notice, respond, notice, respond, notice, respond, notice, respond, notice, respond. Get faster at that. So as soon as you notice, respond really quickly. And what I've found over time for myself, for other people, for clients, for clinicians, for everybody, is that if you can improve the notice and respond pathway, many, many great things start to happen. Firstly, you're faster to do something that will help the situation. You're in minute 4, you notice you're fighting, you do something to help. Now we've stopped the fighting in minute 4. You used to go for 2 hours. So I'm happy with that improvement, right? Secondly, the better you get at noticing and responding, the better you get at noticing. So now you're not going to fight for 4 minutes. You're going to fight for 2 minutes. And then you're going to fight for 12 seconds. And then you're going to fight for 4 seconds. And when I've done this with clients and it's been effective, I'll often find that there comes a point at which they're like, I don't even know what we're doing here. Hang on a minute. I'm sorry. Maybe that wasn't the right way to go about that. It's that fast. It's kind of funny where it's like bad behavior, good behavior, that fast.
Wow.
It's down to like 1 or 2 seconds. So how do you get to like, I want to notice in the moment what's happening and I want to respond better? Well, you start with a longer latency and you decrease it. You start with 4 minutes, get it down to 2, get it down to 12 seconds, get it down to 4 seconds, get it down to 1 second. That's instant, right?
I like that a lot. And now I see why you labeled it as the backwardness of behavioral change. Because yeah, instead of trying to get ahead of it, it's like, let's try to shave off from the other.
Oh, that's a great phrasing. Thank you, Allie.
Yeah, of course.
Shave off the ends of that intensity. Oh, love that. And then another really important thing happens. So let's say that the latency starts at 6 months, because there's probably some situation in your mind right now where you're like, I don't necessarily love the way that I handled that, and I could probably do something even now to kind of improve the situation with whatever person from the past. That could be 6 months ago. If you were to now go back to them and say, you remember that conversation we had 6 months ago? I've still been thinking about it. Notice, respond. It's 6 months. That sucks, but notice, respond, notice, respond, notice, respond. What you're teaching the other person is I will respond. It might take me a while. My initial behavior might not be the best, but I will respond to this. I will help. I'm going to come back. And so now they are in the moment. Maybe they're less activated. Maybe they were the one who was trying to say pancake and you weren't listening. But they have a different kind of expectation of this situation. Now they're watching you be reactive or anxious or scrolling or whatever it is. And they're thinking like, all right, well, they'll come back because you've taught them. I will deal. If I'm engaging in bad behavior, I will come back and deal with my bad behavior. We're going to fix this. I'm in it right now.
Yeah. Wherever you're at, start there and start shaving off.
Exactly. And if, as I'm talking about that 6-month thing, you're thinking, oh yeah, I do have one of those, I should probably, then do it. That's exactly what we're talking about. Notice, respond, notice, respond, notice, respond.
Yeah. It's not too late. We've talked about the go back approach before on this podcast, and it's not too late. It's not too late. Well, I've really enjoyed this topic today. I hope it's been helpful for all you listeners. We have a new quote on the board. If it matters to your partner, it should matter to you.
So often I hear a partner, an individual in a relationship bring up an issue, and then their partner brings up their own issue. It's like, I feel like we don't go out and kind of date as much as we used to. We stopped courting one another. The next response from the other person is going to be something like, well, we're so busy. Well, we have a kid right now. What are you doing?
Right.
You missed all of the important stuff.
And maybe to you, continuing to quote unquote date your partner after you've been in a marriage for several years isn't as important to you, but it's important to your partner. And so if you're trying to be in relationship with your partner and it's important to them, then it is important to the relationship.
Right. And I think a better impulse very often when a partner is bringing up something, even if they don't bring it up with the best behavior, let's say they even like get a little snappy or snippy or something of that nature. 1, people are flawed. 2, don't do that. Be nice to people. But 3, if you're the recipient of that, one of the ways that you can respond is with questions. Be like, hey, what's going on right now? Or, hey, why is this important to you?
Yeah.
As soon as somebody brings something like that up, I'm curious, like, wait, what's happening? You don't know yet. And so if you just start responding, you're reacting to yourself, not them. And you've decided that whatever they brought to you doesn't matter.
Right. You've already kind of like shoot it off, and that's not going to be very great for the health of your relationship moving forward if you continue to do that. I mean, yeah, get curious. Like, oh, okay, this thing that you're bringing to me, is this connected to like a deeply held value of yours? Like, let me try to understand,
Yeah, and usually you're not under threat. Like the situation I just gave where somebody says, well, we're so busy with the kids and we work a lot and et cetera and so on. They're defending their time. They're defending the status quo. They're trying to protect something within themselves, which means they're scared of losing something within themselves. And if we could do a better job of the person bringing the issue just shares what their experience, needs, desires, expectations are, rather than demands of the other person, and the recipient can just stay curious, then we're in a situation where it's like, you're just feeling something and I'm just curious about this thing that you're feeling. We haven't made any decisions. So we haven't upended our life. We're not like turning over the apple cart. We're not moving to, some other land. We're just talking. And it matters to me that you're feeling something. We could end up at the status quo at the end of the conversation, but now I know that you're feeling this and we're a little bit in that together. I miss that too. We can't change it because the kids and the house and the whatever. But fuck yeah, I miss that too. At least we're in it together.
Right. Yeah, it can be very lonely if you're in a relationship where like one person has needs and they've tried to make ass of their partner, and the partner's like, yeah, well, that's not important to me. Here's my needs, and they're different from yours, and they're making those ass of the other partner, and the other partner's like, well, I don't jive with that. I don't care about that. Then we're on like our each like separate corners,
Yeah.
and like
Enjoy your lonely island.
it's a lone, we're in a relationship, but not really. We're just like lonely, and we're like in two separate like sides of the room, you know? And um yeah.
We said
It,
this on a recent episode, but like quit with the focus on them, start with the focus on you.
mhm.
So if you're able to start with, here's what I'm noticing, here's what I'm curious about, here's what I'm feeling, etc., that's a great starting point. And then if you can, the focus that you do want to have on the other person is curiosity about their experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, if your partner has needs and it matters to them, it should matter to you too if you're trying to be in a relationship with that person.
Doesn't mean capitulate.
No, it doesn't mean capitulate. You can decide, you can make whatever decision you want, but um yeah, I just think like I've just heard so often it's like, well, that's something that they want in a relationship, but I don't really care about it, so whatever. It's like,
Yep.
how's that going to work moving forward?
And very often when I hear this from clients, they'll be like, well, I tried to explain to them ... And it's like, at what point in all of the good relationship communication, the conversation we've been having was, well, explain it to them, a part of the mission? Or like, when, how, no, stop explaining, start listening.
There you go. Stop explaining, start listening. All right. Thanks, guys, for listening to our podcast today. As always, if you're interested in our services, head on over to delvepsych.com. That's DELVEPSYCH.com. And do check out our Substack at delvepsych.substack.com. See you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.